In a quiet town called Masinga, there was a mysterious food seller named Zara. Every day, people from far and wide lined up in the market to buy her food. The aroma of her cooking filled the air, drawing townsfolk from their homes and traders from their stalls. Her food was unlike anything anyone had ever tasted, rich, flavorful, and satisfying. But no one knew where she got her ingredients or how she made her dishes so magical. Zara was a quiet woman with no family. She didn't speak much, and no one in the town knew where she lived. Every morning she would appear at the market, seemingly out of nowhere, with large pots filled with food. The moment she arrived, people would rush to form a line. Her dishes changed daily, sometimes a delicious stew, other times fragrant rice with perfectly grilled meat. Every meal she made was unforgettable, and no matter how many people came, there was always enough food. She was always the first to arrive at the market, even before the sun rose, and the last to leave when the sky grew dark. People would often wonder how someone who sold so much food could keep her business thriving day after day. Some believed she had a secret source of wealth, while others thought she possessed magical powers. But Zara never revealed her secrets. One day, a group of women in the market began to grow jealous of Zara's success. They had been selling food for years, yet they struggled to sell even a fraction of what Zara did. These women, led by Mama Muthoni, began to whisper among themselves. How can she feed so many people from just those few pots of food? Mama Muthoni asked. It's not natural. There's something strange about her. I heard she doesn't even live in Masinga, one woman added. No one has ever seen her outside the market. Another woman leaned in closer. Do you think she's using charms to make people love her food? Maybe she's not even human. The jealousy grew day by day. Some of the women tried to copy Zara's dishes, hoping to attract her customers, but they failed. No matter what they did, they could never match the taste of her food. Frustrated, they started spreading rumors. Be careful with her food, Mama Muthoni warned some of the townspeople. Who knows where she gets her ingredients? What if she's using something evil to make her food taste that good? Despite the rumors, many of the townspeople ignored the gossip and continued to line up at Zara's stall. Her food was too good, and she had become too important to the community. Even the town chief sent his servants early to buy her meals, as no feast was complete without Zara's dishes. Mama Muthoni came home one evening, her face twisted with frustration. The market had been terrible for her that day. While Zara's stall was packed with customers, Mama Muthoni hadn't sold a single bowl of her stew. As she threw down her empty baskets, her mind raced with anger and jealousy. She stormed into the kitchen, determined to cook something good for her family. But just as she was about to start, she called out to her husband, who was sitting on the porch, resting after a long day. Baba Muthoni, what do you want to eat tonight? She asked, trying to keep her voice calm despite her mood. To her surprise, he waved his hand dismissively. I'm not hungry, Mama Muthoni. I already ate. I ordered food from Zara's stall earlier and now I'm full. I don't need anything for the rest of the night. Mama Muthoni froze, her heart pounding. She clenched her fists, trying to keep her anger in check. So you ate Zara's food? She asked, her voice shaking. Baba Muthoni, completely unaware of his wife's fury, nodded. Yes, it was delicious. You should have some next time. You won't believe how tender the meat was. I haven't tasted something that good in a long time. Mama Muthoni's eyes flared. First it had been her children. They had come home from school complaining that her food didn't taste as good as Zara's. They wanted to buy from her every day. And now her husband too? Was everyone in her house going to betray her for that woman? She stormed out of the kitchen and into her bedroom, her mind racing with thoughts of Zara. Mama Muthoni didn't sleep well that night, tossing and turning as anger bubbled inside her. By the time the sun rose the next morning, she had made up her mind. Something had to be done. At the market, Mama Muthoni was the first to arrive as usual. She set up her stall and waited, but her eyes kept darting to the spot where Zara usually set up. She didn't have to wait long before Zara appeared, carrying her large pots of food like she always did, moving with a calmness that only made Mama Muthoni angrier. As soon as Zara finished setting up, the line started forming. Mama Muthoni watched in fury as her husband walked over to Zara's stall. Again. He greeted her with a smile and waited his turn in line. Mama Muthoni's blood boiled. She marched over to Zara, pushing through the crowd of customers. Zara? Mama Muthoni shouted. The market went quiet as everyone turned to see what was happening. Zara looked up from her food stall. Yes, Mama Muthoni? Mama Muthoni walked closer. You need to stop selling food to my family. My husband and my children, they should not be buying from you. Zara stayed calm. I didn't make them buy from me. You can't make people eat what they don't want, Zara replied, still calm. Mama Muthoni was so angry, but she didn't know what to say. She turned around and left, her heart filled with frustration. The market was still buzzing with whispers as everyone watched her walk away. That night, after the market had closed and everyone had gone home, Mama Muthoni stayed behind. She was filled with anger and refused to go home. Instead, she hid in the bushes near Zara's stall, waiting to see what would happen. Mama Muthoni glanced around, feeling the cool night air on her skin. She waited and waited, her heart pounding with frustration. Just as she thought about going home, she saw a figure in the distance. It was Zara, walking slowly with a basket in her hand, heading down a narrow path. Quietly, Mama Muthoni crept out of the bushes, careful not to make a sound. She followed Zara at a distance, making sure to stay hidden. Zara walked calmly, her footsteps soft on the dirt road as they moved away from the market. Mama Muthoni's mind raced with thoughts. What does Zara do when she goes home? Why is her food so special? The moonlight guided their way, casting long shadows through the trees. Mama Muthoni's anger slowly began to mix with curiosity. After walking for a while, Zara turned off the path into a small clearing. Mama Muthoni hesitated for a moment but decided to keep going. She needed to know the truth. In the clearing, Zara stopped by a small fire pit and set down her basket. She looked around as if sensing something, but didn't see Mama Muthoni hiding nearby. Zara paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. The quiet of the night surrounded her. She moved slowly, her expression peaceful. But just as she began to settle down, she struck her hand against the ground. To Mama Muthoni's shock, a hidden trapdoor opened, and a lifeless body emerged from beneath the earth. Mama Muthoni gasped, her heart racing as she took a step back, wanting to run away. But it was too late. Zara's eyes locked onto her. With a swift gesture, she whispered something under her breath. A strange force filled the air, and Mama Muthoni felt a tingling sensation wash over her. In an instant, the world around her changed. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Zara stood there, her expression calm but firm. "You should have stayed away, Mama Muthoni," she said, though Mama Muthoni could no longer hear her voice. Panic surged through Mama Muthoni as she realized she had been made deaf and dumb. She stumbled back in shock, trying to escape, but Zara held her gaze, a knowing look in her eyes. "Now you will understand what it means to be alone," Zara said softly, though her words were lost on deaf ears. At that moment, Mama Muthoni felt a wave of fear wash over her. She wanted to run, to shout for help, but her body wouldn't obey. The body that had emerged from the ground echoed her deepest fears. The fear of losing her family, the fear of being forgotten, and the fear of Zara's dark power. Zara turned back to the body. She whispered softly, "You will not disrupt my work. You wanted to take away my customers. But now, you will learn the truth of what I protect." Mama Muthoni watched helplessly as Zara began to prepare her next batch of food, her movements deliberate, her focus unshaken. The fire flickered, casting eerie shadows across the clearing. The air was thick with the smell of spices, and something else. Something darker. Zara stirred the pot with practiced ease. The bubbling mixture inside was rich and aromatic, but this time, it didn't smell inviting. It smelled wrong. It smelled like death. As Mama Muthoni tried to turn and leave, she found she couldn't. Her feet felt rooted to the ground, as if the earth itself was holding her in place. Zara looked at her and said calmly, "Now you will see the truth." She ladled out a bowl of the thick, dark soup and turned toward Mama Muthoni with a strange smile. "You will eat this." Mama Muthoni shook her head violently, tears springing to her eyes. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her ears. The idea of eating what she had just seen come out of that pot made her stomach turn. But Zara's gaze didn't waver. Her eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, filled with an unsettling calm. "Don't refuse me," Zara said, her voice eerily soft, "or I will make sure you regret it." Mama Muthoni's body trembled. She wanted to scream, to run, to do anything, but the power Zara had cast over her was stronger than her will. Her hands, shaking uncontrollably, reached out and took the bowl. No, this can't be happening, she thought. With trembling fingers, she brought the spoon to her lips. The aroma was overwhelming, spices mingled with something she couldn't identify. She tried to hold her breath, but the scent still clung to her nostrils. Her stomach lurched. She took a sip. The taste exploded in her mouth, rich and intense, but beneath the surface was something sinister. It was unlike anything she had ever eaten, and not in a good way. She gagged, tears now streaming down her cheeks. Every instinct screamed at her to spit it out, but Zara's piercing gaze locked her in place. "Don't you dare," Zara's voice rang in her head even though she could no longer hear. "If you do, I'll kill you where you stand." With each swallow, Mama Muthoni felt her soul shrinking. The more she ate, the heavier her heart became. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the bowl. But she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Finally, after what felt like forever, the bowl was empty. Zara watched her with satisfaction. "Good," she said. "Now you know what I can do. You are free to go, but remember this moment." The invisible hold on Mama Muthoni's body loosened. Her knees gave out and she stumbled backward, gasping, eyes wide with terror. She turned and ran, barely able to keep her balance as she pushed through the bushes, back toward the path to town. By the time she reached her house, she could barely stand. The door creaked open and her husband, Baba Muthoni, rushed to her side. "Mama Muthoni, where have you been?" "I was so worried," he said, his voice panicked. But she couldn't answer. Her mouth moved but no sound came out. Her eyes were wild, her face pale, her body trembling. She reached out to him, desperate to explain, to tell him what she had seen, what she had eaten, what she had become. But all she could do was shake her head and cry. He looked at her, horrified. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" he asked, but she could only weep, pointing at her throat in desperation. Realization crept into his eyes as he saw her pain, her silence. Something terrible had happened. Something tied to Zara. That night, Mama Muthoni lay in bed, her husband beside her, unable to find comfort in his presence. She cried silently, the tears soaking her pillow as her heart ached. Her mind replayed the horror she had witnessed, the trapdoor, the body, the soup. She could still feel its taste lingering on her tongue like a curse. She could still see Zara's calm, cold expression as she was forced to eat it. Baba Muthoni watched her with helpless eyes, unsure of what to do. He whispered to her, tried to hold her hand, tried to make her smile again, but she remained distant, shattered, unreachable. The next morning, desperate to help, Baba Muthoni went to the market early. He thought maybe buying food from Zara, something his wife usually hated, might lift her mood, make her eat again, make her speak. The scent of Zara's soup filled the market like always, rich and magnetic. He approached her stall, greeted her politely, and bought a steaming bowl, unaware of what had really happened between his wife and Zara the night before. When he got home, he brought the bowl to her gently. "My dear, please eat something," he said softly. "I got your favorite." But as soon as he placed the bowl in front of her, Mama Muthoni's eyes widened in terror. She shook her head violently, her lips trembling, and tears immediately began to stream down her cheeks. She reached for his hands, gripping them tightly, trying to stop him. Baba Muthoni, confused, looked at her with concern. "What is it? You don't want it?" "I thought." But she only shook her head harder, pointing desperately at the soup, then at her mouth, then to the ground, as if trying to communicate a warning. He frowned. "It's okay, Mama Muthoni. I already ate some earlier. I feel fine. Maybe you're just tired. Just try." She snatched the bowl from the table and threw it across the room. It crashed against the wall, shattering, the dark soup splashing like blood across the floor. Stunned silence filled the room. Baba Muthoni stepped back, staring at her wide-eyed. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. All she wanted was for him to believe her, but how could she tell him the truth without a voice? Meanwhile, back at the market, a woman named Asha had gathered a few other women near a fruit stall. "Have you seen Mama Muthoni lately?" she asked in a hushed tone. "She doesn't talk anymore. It's like she can't hear or speak." Another woman nodded. "I noticed. She just stares and cries. She looks haunted." "I think something happened after she confronted Zara," Asha whispered, lowering her voice even more. "She was so angry that day. Then the next she's like this? That's not normal." The women exchanged nervous glances. "Do you think Zara had something to do with it?" "I think Zara has powers," another one whispered. "Dark ones." Mama Muthoni couldn't bear the pain anymore. Every moment felt like a nightmare she couldn't escape. Since the night Zara forced her to eat that dreadful soup, her life had crumbled into pieces. She couldn't speak, couldn't explain what she had seen, what she had eaten. And now, she was trapped in a silence that felt eternal, surrounded by people who could never understand. One evening, as despair overwhelmed her, she found a small bottle hidden in a wooden chest, an old bottle of poison meant to kill rodents. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. The tears came again, warm and endless, as she stared at her reflection in the small cracked mirror beside her bed. She thought of her children, of her husband, of everything she had lost, her dignity, her voice, her peace. She thought of Zara's eyes, glowing in the firelight, of the taste of death, of the betrayal that no one believed. With shaking hands, Mama Muthoni opened the bottle. She didn't even hesitate. She drank it. When Baba Muthoni found her lifeless body a few hours later, he let out a cry so loud it echoed through the streets of Masinga. The neighbors came running, shocked and heartbroken. The town had lost one of its most vibrant women, and no one could understand what had pushed her to such an end. No one, except her closest friend, Naamura. As people gathered to mourn, whispering about how Mama Muthoni had lost her voice and died under mysterious circumstances, Naamura's heart pounded with suspicion. She knew something wasn't right. She had seen Mama Muthoni that morning, silent, hollow-eyed. She had seen the fear etched deep into her face. And she remembered the argument, how Mama Muthoni had confronted Zara in the market only days before everything changed. Zara has something to do with this, she thought. The rest of the town grieved, but Naamura couldn't rest. Days passed. The market buzzed again. Zara continued to sell her food, her smile unwavering. People returned to her stall. The tragedy faded from their minds. But not Naamura's. Every time she saw Zara, a fire rose in her chest. She needed answers. She needed the truth. So one day she traveled to a nearby town to visit a traditional healer, a man known for his insight and wisdom. She told him everything, about Mama Muthoni's sudden silence, the confrontation with Zara, and her mysterious death. The healer listened carefully, his face darkening with each word. Zara is not an ordinary woman, he said gravely. She's using dark power. If you wish to uncover her secrets, you must be protected. You cannot confront her unarmed. He handed Naamura a small charm wrapped in red cloth. This will shield you. But be warned, if she catches you, your life will be in danger. Naamura nodded. Her heartbeat was heavy in her chest, but her eyes burned with determination. She would not let Mama Muthoni's death go unanswered. That night, she hid in the bushes near the market, watching Zara closely. As always, Zara was the last to leave. Naamura followed her, careful to remain in the shadows. Zara walked down a narrow path behind the market, basket in hand. She moved slowly, gracefully, her head high. Naamura crouched low, her heart racing. She watched as Zara knelt down beside a patch of soil, and tapped the ground 3 times. To Naamura's horror, the earth shifted. And from the ground, a lifeless body emerged. Zara began slicing the flesh from the corpse, wrapping it neatly like butcher's meat. Naamura nearly screamed, but she held it in. She had seen enough. Her hands trembled as she crawled back into the night. She had her proof. The next morning, Naamura called a meeting with a few trusted youths in the village. Her face was pale, her voice firm. I saw her, she said. Zara is cooking with human flesh. Gasps rippled through the small group. Are you sure? One of the boys, Wanjohi, asked, his face tightening with doubt. I saw it with my own eyes, Naamura said. A body. Fresh. She was cutting it up like meat. Wrapping it, preparing it. That's what she's been feeding this whole village. The group stood in stunned silence. Some were horrified. Others are skeptical. She's too respected, one girl murmured. People love her food. No one will believe you. I don't need them to believe me, Naamura replied. We just need to show the elders. The group agreed to take the matter to the village elders and the local police. Later that day they returned to the clearing with the authorities, but Zara was prepared. The ground was undisturbed. The fire pit was cold. There was nobody there. Nothing. Zara stood near her small hut, looking calm and confused. What's the meaning of this? She asked sweetly. This woman claims you're hiding something, the head elder said, motioning to Naamura. Zara raised her eyebrows. Me? That's absurd. I've done nothing but serve this village. My food has fed the poor, the old, even you, Elder Baresa. She turned to the others with a mock-wounded look. Have I ever hurt anyone? The elder hesitated. There's no proof here. Nothing we can act on. The police officers shrugged. Without evidence, they couldn't arrest her. She was released. And that's when the whispers began to turn. The villagers who had once smiled at Naamura began to avoid her. Some accused her of jealousy. Others said she was cursed. You're trying to bring down a good woman, one of the market women hissed. Zara feeds us all. Who are you to accuse her? Naamura's heart ached. How could they be so blind? She stayed away from the market after that, the stares and murmurs too much to bear. But even as the village turned its back on her, she didn't stop. She knew what she had seen. She knew what Zara was. And she wasn't going to rest until the truth came to light. She remembered the charm the healer had given her and clutched it tighter each night, whispering prayers into the darkness. One early morning, as she was preparing to fetch water, she overheard two women talking near the well. "Did you hear? Naamura still insists she saw something. That she's going to stop Zara. She's obsessed. She's lucky Zara hasn't turned on her yet." Naamura's jaw tightened. Not yet, she thought. But it's coming. She made her way to the palace that day. The king of Masinga was fair and respected. If anyone could help her, it would be him. When she reached the palace, she knelt and spoke firmly. "Your Majesty, I have come to tell you the truth about Zara." The king studied her with tired eyes. "You? Again? What now?" "Zara is not who she seems," she said, voice steady. "She uses dark magic. Mama Muthoni, she died because of her." The king sighed, waving her off. "You bring me nothing but stories. Zara's food has kept our people full. You bring no proof, just rumors." "Please listen," she tried again, but he raised his hand. "Enough, Naamura. I think you're just jealous. Face reality." Her heart sank. The king was too fond of Zara's dishes to see the truth. But she didn't give up. As she left the palace, she saw someone approaching, a familiar figure on the road. It was Baba Muthoni. She ran to him, hoping he might finally understand. "I was just about to come find you," she said. "There's something I need to tell you. Zara is the reason your wife is dead." But Baba Muthoni smirked. "Naamura, you're wasting your time." She blinked. "What?" He stepped closer, eyes cold. "You should mind your own business." Naamura's breath caught. "How can you say that? Your wife is dead and you're protecting the woman who—" He cut her off with a cruel laugh. "I'm having an affair with Zara now. She's going to be my wife soon." Naamura's mouth fell open. Her voice cracked. "What?" Baba Muthoni shrugged. "Mama Muthoni is gone. Life moves on. You should too." "You're with her? After everything?" Naamura whispered, her voice shaking with disgust. "She's a good woman," he said with a smirk. "You should stop chasing ghosts." Then he turned and walked away. Naamura stood frozen in the middle of the path, betrayal burning through her chest. She had thought Baba Muthoni might help her, joining her in exposing Zara. But now he was in her grasp too. Alone and furious, she clenched her fists. "If no one will help me, I'll do it myself." Determined not to let Mama Muthoni's death go unanswered, Naamura made her way back to the traditional healer's home. The long walk to the neighboring village felt heavier than before. The weight of disappointment, betrayal, and isolation sat thick on her shoulders, but her resolve had never been stronger. When she arrived, she noticed something was wrong. The compound was quiet. Too quiet. The door to the healer's hut was slightly ajar, creaking gently in the breeze. She called out, "Baba? Are you there?" No answer. She pushed the door open slowly and stepped inside. And then she saw him. The healer, dead. His body cold, twisted on the floor, eyes still open as if death had caught him by surprise. Naamura gasped, stumbling back, her hands flying to her mouth. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She didn't need to ask what happened. She knew. Zara had found him. And silenced him. The only person who had truly believed her, gone. Tears blurred her vision, but as she knelt beside the healer's body, something inside her hardened. This wasn't just a battle anymore. This was war. She stood, clutching the protective charm he'd given her. Her hands shook as she wrapped it around her wrist and whispered, "You may have taken him, but you won't take me." As she turned to leave, a sudden chill swept through the room. The air thickened like smoke. Her skin prickled. And then, out of nowhere, Zara appeared in the doorway. She stepped inside, smiling darkly. "You should have stayed out of this, Naamura," she said in a low, cutting voice. Naamura froze. Zara's eyes gleamed with menace. "Yes, I killed him. Just like Mama Muthoni. And just like anyone else who dares to interfere with what I do." "You're evil," Naamura hissed, standing her ground. "You feed people death and call it food." Zara chuckled. "And they love it, don't they? Even now they defend me. You're an outcast." Naamura clenched her fists. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," Zara said, her voice suddenly sharp. "This is your last warning. Back off. Or end up like the rest." But Naamura didn't move. "You're scared," she said quietly. "That's why you keep trying to silence me." Zara's smile faded. Her eyes darkened. "You don't know what you're messing with." And just like that, she vanished, leaving only cold air and silence behind. Naamura stood there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway. Then she whispered to herself, "You're wrong, Zara. I know exactly what I'm messing with. And I'm not stopping until I finish it." That night, as she lay in bed, the protective charm still warm against her skin, Naamura had a dream. It was unlike any dream she'd had before. A bright light filled her room, and in the center of it stood a glowing figure, a messenger, radiant and serene. "Naamura," the voice said gently, "get up. Go to Zara's hut. Tonight is the night. The Lord has given you the strength to end her evil. Do not be afraid." Naamura woke with a start, the message burning in her heart. She reached under her bed and pulled out the Bible her mother had left her before passing, her most treasured possession. She clutched it tightly, feeling its weight not just in her hands but in her spirit. It was the middle of the night, but she felt no fear. Only purpose. She stepped into the darkness, barefoot, her heart pounding, and made her way to the edge of the market where Zara's hut sat quietly, wrapped in shadows. When she reached it, she peered through the window. And what she saw made her stomach churn. Zara cooking again. And this time, Naamura could see clearly, it was human flesh in the pot. Naamura's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers gripped the windowsill so tightly her knuckles turned white. There was no doubt anymore, no room for questioning. Zara was cooking human meat, slicing it with care, seasoning it like it was nothing more than lamb or beef. The flames under her pot flickered unnaturally, dancing in hues of green and blue. The scent, rich and intoxicating, floated through the air, but now Naamura could smell what lay beneath it. Something sour. Something rotten. Instead of panicking, she reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She hit a record. She captured everything, Zara ladling the stew, humming a chilling tune, whispering in a tongue Naamura didn't understand. Then came the most damning moment. Zara lifted a hand from the pot, a human hand browned and bubbling in the thick soup. Naamura nearly gagged, but she held it in. She kept recording, praying the charm on her wrist would keep her hidden just a little longer. Once she had enough, she stepped back, heart thudding. Then she took a deep breath and stepped through the door. "Zara?" Zara spun around, startled. The ladle clattered to the floor. Her eyes blazed when she saw Naamura standing there, holding her Bible in one hand and her phone in the other. "I know what you're doing," Naamura said loudly. "And now the whole village will know too." Zara's face twisted in rage. "You little? You dare challenge me again?" she shrieked, stepping forward. But Naamura didn't flinch. She held the Bible tighter and opened it. "You may think you're powerful, Zara," she said, voice firm and unwavering, "but the Word of God is stronger than your darkness." The room trembled as Zara raised her arms, calling on the dark magic she had hidden for years. The air around them shifted, heavy with spiritual energy. Shadows slithered across the walls like snakes. The fire in the pot roared to life, casting Zara in a hellish glow. "You'll die like the others," she screamed. But Naamura began to pray aloud, reading Psalm 91. "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." A blinding light burst from the Bible's pages. Zara staggered back, her face contorting in pain. She hurled curses at Naamura, but each one fell flat, dissolving in the air before it reached her. The hut shook violently. Pots toppled. The ground cracked beneath them. Naamura's voice grew louder. "No weapon formed against me shall prosper," she shouted, flipping to Isaiah 54 verse 17. Zara screamed, her form flickering like smoke. "You think this is over?" she shrieked. Naamura raised her Bible high, praying from Ephesians 6 verse 12. "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers." With one final word she shouted, "In Jesus' name, be gone." A burst of light exploded from her body, knocking Zara backward into the fire pit. There was a thunderous crack and the flames consumed her. Zara's final scream echoed through the trees, and then silence. The shadows vanished. The air cleared. The fire died. And Zara was gone. The silence that followed was almost sacred. Naamura stood frozen, her chest heaving, the Bible still clutched in her trembling hands. The hut, once filled with darkness and death, was now quiet, eerily so. Only the faint hiss of cooling embers remained. She took a cautious step forward, expecting some trick, some final retaliation. But Zara was gone. Not a trace of her remained. Not even ashes. Only the scorched circle where her body had fallen. Naamura dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. Tears streamed down her face, tears of relief, of grief, of victory. She had done it. alone. She had ended the reign of evil that had held her village hostage for years. But she wasn't done. She stood, wiped her face and looked around the hut. Her phone was still recording. She made sure to capture the scorched ground, the abandoned pot of soup, and the chilling remnants of Zara's wicked work. Then she turned and walked out into the dawn. By the time she reached the village, the sun had begun to rise, casting a golden glow over the quiet streets. But that peace wouldn't last long. Within the hour, Naamura stood in the center of the market, where Zara's stall usually stood, and played the video for everyone to see. At first, people gathered out of curiosity. Then came the gasps, the screams, the sobs. Mothers turned away, shielding their children's eyes. Men dropped their goods and stared in disbelief. Elder Baresa fell to his knees, muttering prayers. The truth had finally broken through. Zara had been feeding them the dead. And Naamura had stopped her. The town chief was summoned. The king was notified. The police came, but there was nothing to arrest. Zara was gone. No trial, no prison. Justice had already been served. That evening, a ceremony was held in the village square. Candles were lit in memory of Mama Muthoni and all the others who had unknowingly been part of Zara's dark ritual. The king stood before the people and called Naamura forward. "You have done what none of us had the courage to do," he said. "You stood for truth when we turned away. You saw what we refused to see. For that, we honor you." He handed her a golden staff, a symbol of honor and protection. "I name you Protector of Masinga," he declared. "You will advise me and you will help ensure nothing like this happens again." The crowd erupted in cheers, many now weeping openly, grateful, humbled, ashamed. Even Baba Muthoni came to her, his face pale with guilt. "I was wrong," he whispered. "She had me under her spell. I didn't see. I didn't know." Naamura looked at him, not with anger but with quiet understanding. "She's gone," she said simply. "Make sure you never forget who helped her thrive." 2 nights later, a guard at the village jail, where Zara had briefly been held, found something strange in her old cell. A single black feather. Still warm. The black feather sat in the center of the stone floor, pulsing faintly with heat. The guard hesitated before picking it up, a chill running down his spine. He turned it over slowly, noting the strange oily sheen that shimmered beneath the torchlight. The next morning he brought it to Elder Baresa. "This was left in her cell," he said quietly. "It wasn't there before." Baresa took the feather in trembling hands, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't from any bird in Masinga. Not any bird in this world." He turned to Naamura that same day, concerned about lining his face. "She may be gone," he said, "but I believe something of her power, some trace of her spirit, remains." Naamura didn't flinch. Let the reminder stay. We need to remember what happens when we ignore the truth, when we let fear blind us. From that day on, the village of Masinga changed. The market was no longer just a place of food and chatter. It became a place of vigilance and honor. New rules were put in place. Every seller had to register their goods. Elders took turns inspecting food stalls. The people began to trust again, but not blindly. Hair and eyes that flickered red for a second before fading into shadow. But no one ever saw it again. And no one ever forgot. Because even when evil is defeated, the memory of it lingers. Naamura became a voice of wisdom and warning, sitting beside the king, guiding decisions with a calm, steady hand. Children were taught the story of Zara in schools, not as a tale of horror, but a lesson in courage, discernment, and faith. Mama Muthoni was honored every year with a memorial feast, prepared only with locally grown, verified ingredients, a reminder of what had been lost and what had been fought for.